"You're a failure, Dad." The room went so quiet I could hear the waiter stop walking behind me. My son didn't even whisper it. He smiled while saying it, as if it was the funniest thing he'd ever said. Around the table, nobody defended me. My daughter looked down at her plate. My daughter-in-law kept eating. Even my own brother avoided my eyes. I forced myself to smile. If you're new here, subscribe to Family Betrayal because stories like mine remind us that sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. And one more thing before we continue. The faces, photos, background videos, and scenes you see are only visual illustrations to help tell this story. They're not real people from my life. I quietly picked up the dinner bill. It was over $800. Nobody even reached for their wallet because they already expected me to pay, just like I always had. I handed my credit card to the waiter, thanked him, wished everyone a good night, and walked out before anyone noticed my hands shaking. I sat inside my truck for almost 20 minutes. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I was empty. The boy I had raised, the boy whose diapers I changed, whose baseball games I never missed, had just called me a failure in front of my entire family. And nobody thought it was worth stopping. As I drove home, memories kept hitting me. When his business failed 5 years earlier, I emptied nearly half my retirement savings so he wouldn't lose his house. When his wife got sick, I paid every hospital bill. When they couldn't afford daycare, I watched their kids every weekend. I never asked for thanks. I believe that's what fathers do. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was my son. For 1 second I thought he wanted to apologize. Instead, the text said, "Don't forget to transfer the money tomorrow. We need it before noon." Not "Are you okay?" Not "I'm sorry." Just another demand. I stared at that message until the screen went dark. That's when something inside me finally broke. Have you ever realized someone only loved what you could give them, not who you were? I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I opened a folder I hadn't looked at in almost 3 years. One signature inside it had the power to change every one of their lives. By sunrise, I had made the hardest decision of my life. The sun had barely come up when I poured myself a cup of coffee and spread the papers across my kitchen table. My hands were steady for the first time in months. That surprised me. I thought I would feel guilty. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. 3 years earlier, my son had convinced me to become the silent financial partner in his construction company. He told me it was only temporary until the business became profitable. I trusted him because he was my son. I invested nearly everything I had left after retirement. In return, I kept one thing he barely paid attention to: legal control. Every major loan, every company asset, every line of credit required my signature. Over time, he stopped treating me like a father and started treating me like an ATM. Every phone call ended with another request for money. Every family dinner became another meeting about his business. If I hesitated, he'd remind me that family helps family. The text he sent after insulting me at dinner changed everything. At 8:30 that morning, my lawyer called. "Are you absolutely sure?" he asked. I looked out the window and thought about the silence around that dinner table. Nobody had spoken up for me. Nobody had even asked if I was okay. "I'm sure," I answered. Within an hour, we signed the paperwork freezing my personal financial guarantees. Every bank that had approved loans because of my assets received formal notice that I was withdrawing my support, exactly as my contract allowed. I wasn't taking his company. I wasn't stealing anything. I was simply refusing to risk losing the rest of my retirement for someone who no longer respected me. At 10:47, my phone exploded with calls. First my son, then his wife, then my brother. I let every call go to voicemail. Finally, one message came through. "Dad, what did you do?" "The bank just suspended our credit line. Payroll is frozen." For the first time in years, he sounded scared instead of arrogant. I closed my eyes. The fear in his voice hurt more than I expected. He was still my son. But then I remembered his smile when he called me a failure. I placed the phone face down. An hour later, someone knocked on my front door. When I opened it, my son wasn't standing there alone. Behind him stood 3 people I never expected to see together. And the look on their faces told me this family was about to fall apart. When I opened the door, my son stood there with his wife and my older brother. None of them looked angry anymore. They looked desperate. My son stepped forward first. "Dad, please, this has gone too far. Just call the bank." I looked him in the eyes. "Did it go too far when you called me a failure in front of everyone?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. My brother tried next. "Come on. Families fight. Don't destroy his future over one bad night. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. One bad night. That wasn't one night. That was years of disrespect. Nobody answered. I invited them inside, not because I had forgiven them, but because I wanted them to hear the truth without excuses. I pulled out an old folder filled with canceled checks, loan agreements, medical bills, and receipts. One by one, I laid them on the table. This paid for your first truck. Another paper. This covered your mortgage when you were 3 months behind. Another. This was your wife's surgery. Another. And this is the retirement account I emptied because I believed in you. My son stared at the papers as if he had never seen them before. His wife quietly wiped tears from her face. Then I said the words I had carried inside for years. I never wanted repayment. I only wanted respect. The room fell silent. For the first time since he was a little boy, my son started crying. I'm sorry, Dad. I got used to you fixing everything. I forgot what it was costing you. Part of me wanted to hug him. Another part remembered every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every insult. Then his phone rang. He answered, and the color drained from his face. What do you mean the investors pulled out? He listened for a few more seconds before lowering the phone. The company's finished, he whispered. His wife buried her face in her hands. My brother looked at me as if expecting me to rescue everyone one more time. I stood there without saying a word. This time it wasn't at an expensive steakhouse. It was a small family restaurant. When the check arrived, he quietly reached for it before anyone else could. He smiled at me. I've got this, Dad. I didn't argue. As we walked outside, he stopped me in the parking lot. I spent years trying to become a successful businessman, he said. I forgot how to be a good son. I'm sorry for every time I made you feel like you only mattered because of your money. Those words healed something inside me that money never could. Today, our relationship is different. He doesn't ask me for checks anymore. He asks me for advice. We still disagree sometimes, but respect has taken the place of entitlement. My grandchildren know me as Grandpa, not the man who pays for everything. Looking back, I don't celebrate that my son lost his business. I celebrate that he finally found his character. The greatest revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's refusing to let their disrespect change the kind of person you are. If you were sitting in my chair that night after being called a failure in front of your whole family, what would you have done? Share your answer in the comments because I'd genuinely like to read it. If this story meant something to you, share it with a friend or family member who needs the reminder that self-respect is never selfish. And if you want more powerful stories about family, betrayal, forgiveness, and second chances, don't forget to subscribe to Family Betrayal. Sometimes the person who walks away in silence isn't the one who loses. Sometimes, he's the one who finally saves himself.